This is for the boys. And I am just one of the boys. My name is Terrell, known in some circles as Big Bro Baker, which is funny considering that I'm only 5'7", which is how many inches? 67 inches? It's not that many inches. I won't stand up, if you get the picture. And this episode is for the boys. This podcast is for the boys. It's for the boys that need to learn to believe in themselves. It's for the boys that went through harder times than maybe they deserved. It's for the boys that need a hand on their shoulder. It's for the boys that need a brother. It's for the boys that need someone else to believe in them. It's for the boys that need a little bit of healthy bullying. It's for the boys that need someone to help them see who they're capable of being. It's for the boys like me. Because like I said, I'm just one of the boys. And I grew up in a good home. And I had a happy childhood. There were also a lot of struggles in my childhood, growing up without a father. And growing up that way, along with some other family struggles, especially in my teenage years, taught me that I needed to learn to do things on my own. And it taught me how to be able to be the person in the room with the clear head, to be able to shut off emotion, to be able to shut off my problems and deal with what needed to be dealt with on my own. And I did that for a while. And I was good at it. And eventually it made me miserable. And the older I got, the more miserable I got. And I grew up around cousins, brother, raised by my mom without a dad, and my grandma. They're wonderful. I love them. I had friends. I was a sensitive kid, which is funny. My mom makes fun of me now because now I'm the stone cold killer. Not really. But I learned how to turn my emotions off, and it's taken me time to learn how to reintegrate them. But that's an aside. But growing up, my family wasn't particularly healthy. I played a lot of sports. I was always into music, and I was good at it. In fact, so good that over the years it became a pretty major part of my identity. That's why there is a guitar in the back there, because to this day it's a part of who I am. But growing up, even though I played a lot of sports, I always lost. And nothing came easy. And I had music that always came easy enough. And when I didn't have cousins or friends around, which was a lot, and mom was working, I spent a lot of time alone. And during those times that I was alone, the two things that I spent the most time doing was reading and playing my guitar and learning to sing. I always say that I learned to sing from Boyz II Men. Boyz II Men taught me how to sing. The first song that I ever performed live was I'm Yours by Jason Mraz. I was like 11 years old, and I don't even lie, dude. I freaking killed that. It was fun. And as I got older, those became the two things that became really core to me. Was music and my mind. I've always had a mind and a way with words, and whether that's a gift from God or whether it was a development from the time I spent in childhood, just autistic obsession, spending time with those, like reading 4 200-page books in a day as a fourth grader and getting grounded from books because I would bring them to dinner and to the store and to family dinner and to Thanksgiving and to Christmas and to birthday parties. Regardless, it became a part of what I did. And by the time I got to high school, I realized that I was fairly smart. And I don't say that to toot my horn. I say that because it became a part of my identity. And by the time that I was in high school, I had really moved away from physicality and really dove into uh, an addiction to comfort and maybe even a fear of discomfort, and started dipping my toes even into the world of hedonism. And I grew up LDS. I still am. And yet vice in sneaky forms became a struggle for me as I grew up. And my family wasn't particularly healthy growing up. And this isn't an insult to my mom because she's an angel. But she did her best, and when you're a single mom, you're gone at work all day because she wanted to take care of us. And when she did get home, she was tired, and she wanted to spend time with us. And so a lot of the time we would eat out. And so that's what I learned. My grandma lived with us for a long time, and she would cook for us sometimes. Sometimes in the morning, she'd make us hash browns and eggs. Get like a fried egg, and she'd make the hash browns herself, like grate them. Sometimes they were like in a package. You'd wake up at like 7:30, and you don't want to be awake, but you have the smell of toast with jam, bacon, the hash browns and the eggs, and like grandma's there cooking some food for you. She died 3 or 4 years ago, and she was an angel. But I think the angels, living and dead, are those that make us who we are. And so I'm grateful for that. But that was what I learned about food. And by the time I was in high school, my cousins were off playing sports. My brother was off figuring out his 20s, battling some demons. I think my mom was battling some demons of her own, and I was too. And without realizing it, I turned to both food and to sexual vices. And like I said, we weren't healthy really as I was growing up, but it got worse. My sophomore year, actually, I wrestled for a season, and that taught me some mental discipline because I'd been like chubby before that, and then I hit that wrestling season. I don't know why I did it. I have no idea. Maybe I had a friend. I don't remember having a friend, but for some reason I was convinced to do it. Bite out of the carrot. And so I did it, and I hated it. I started like the second day of Hell Week. And if you've wrestled or done anything like that, like the whole reason they do Hell Week is so that the chubby kids that think they can come on and do it as like a health a fat loss routine will think that it sucks so bad that they want to quit. And I was one of them. But then I got in there and bros were laughing at me. And I was like, homie is not laughing at me right now. They were making fun of me. And I was like, dog, I will die. I will die before I leave this room today. I will swear I will pass out. I will drop dead in this room before I let them be right about this. So I spent that whole season. I started that season. I don't know. I was maybe like 160, 165. I was shorter, smaller then. And by the end of that season, I was like 130, 132. And that was the first time in my life that I had really leaned out. And my mom was almost scared because I remember coming home that week and I was like, hey, I got to cut weight. I'm going to be eating protein bars and tuna and lettuce. And that's going to be my life. And I didn't have any of the stuff that I usually had. And I slimmed down. And I remember feeling amazing. And then after I finished that season. And mind you, I did intend to wrestle the next 2 seasons because I actually really liked it, even though I was really just really bad because I didn't really have any lessons in real physicality growing up. It was a pretty soft childhood, other than like playing basketball with my cousins, which is again not a complaint or an excuse. It's just what I experienced, and it's what a lot of boys experience now, which is why I'm telling this story that'll lead us to where we're going. So I finished that season. I get a job at KFC, which is a little funny because I'm half black. You can laugh. It's funny. And I porked on up at KFC. I think I gained like a good 30 or so pounds because listen, bro, like you're there and they didn't regulate how much we could eat. We could just eat. So I'd just be like working at the front desk and I'd just be like smashing like chicken nuggets, bro. Or like I'd be having like a sandwich with like some chicken and then you can get like some bacon and cheese and just eating. And then I discovered Flamin' Hot Cheetos. And that became an addiction. I like it's absurd. I don't like to think about how many Flamin' Hot Cheetos that I ate in the span of like my sophomore to senior year because for the first time I had some money. It wasn't a lot, but I had some. And so pretty much every day I had a bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, ate at KFC pretty much all the time, and I started eating out more and more. My grandma started to get older, frailer. She didn't really cook so much. I was more busy because I was doing musicals. So I started eating out a lot more. I started putting on more weight. And it was around this time that I started getting traces uh, of porn into my life. And mind you, even at its worst, it was never a deep, fully fledged addiction to that. And I only say that because I wanna give space for the guys that I understand have a deep, fully fledged addiction to pornography, and that's a real beast. And while I did have an addiction to some degree to that, along with like compulsive sexual behavior, otherwise, it was never any of the like really extreme stuff, which I'm really grateful for. And I only say this because not to be an overshare, but because I know that this is a struggle, especially for Christian men, where you're taught that your sexual desires are a bad thing often. And this is not a knock on Christianity, because I think a misuse of sexual desires is, in fact, a problem. And it's a piece of the hedonism that had been growing within me. But the sexual desire itself is a gift from God. And that's one lesson that I'll be talking a lot about in further episodes and videos, which is that it's our very gift of creation. And I didn't understand that. And when you try to take something that's a part of you and stuff it away, uh, it ends up coming out in other ways, in less healthy ways, which is what it did for me. And as I went through high school, I had a good time. I had dances and friends, but I was really lonely and I became extremely cynical, addicted to pessimism, and I was like resident cynic. And everyone knew it, and it was even so bad that I went to a dance one time with this girl, and she was a total sweetheart, and we should have been having a great time. And looking back, I was just complaining the whole time, looking for stuff that sucked. And I remember one time she kind of snapped. She stopped and turned around and she was like, "You're a downer." And it was like in front of the whole group. And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, you're a downer." And I was like, "No, I'm not." She's like, "You are. You're a downer. You've been complaining this whole time and you're a downer." And then she just like walked off with other people in the group. And I went back with my buddy, and I was like, what a downer. And then I forgot about it and went on with life. And I remembered that some maybe 10 years later, a year or two ago, I remember that she had said that. And this is after I'd made a pretty conscious switch away from any of the poison of pessimism or cynicism or complaining, because we don't allow that in the boys. And I thought back to that, and I was like, wow, her name was Charlie, I think. She was real, and she was right. And I'm grateful for that. And we need more people like that, especially boys, telling us that. So anyway, back to high school. I had a good time. I had friends, but I was lonely, and it got worse and worse. And as that got worse and worse, and I didn't understand my sexual desires, it turned into like this like compulsive, like really softcore porn and masturbation paired with just compulsive eating. And at this point, I was working, and I was in musicals, and I was in academic decathlon for 1 year. And as I went through it, I just put on more and more weight, and more weight, and my gut started to get worse. Didn't get its worst at all when I was in high school, and that was the struggle that I didn't realize I had. And as I went through things, and as my family went through things, there were a lot of times where I needed to be the one in the room, in the house, or at least so it felt, with the cool head. And it felt a lot of times like things were falling apart around me, and there was a lot of chaos around me. And so I learned, I think, to escape that with my vices of choice. And I learned to shut off the emotion, and I learned to be aloof, and I stayed that way for quite a while. When I turned 18, I decided I was going to serve a church mission. So I went to the Philippines for 2 years, and I, got rid of the vices, um, and that changed my life. And I would attribute it to a lot of things. One was a new environment that allowed me to become someone different than what my previous environment had allowed me to. Another, which again I'll talk about a lot later, was living in a tropical paradise. And as a half black guy growing up in Utah that hated the cold, that didn't go outside very much, I was not well. I didn't realize it, but I was not well. And being out here where it's like there weren't bright lights, I was out in the bright sun all day. I was sleeping the best I had ever slept, barring now, because I sleep pretty good. Surrounded by sunlight, putting my feet on the ground all the time, serving people, loving people, learning about God, teaching people about God. That changed me. And it was hard too. And it put me through some hell for some of the times that I was there. And I'm grateful for that hell too, because I needed to learn how to deal with that on my own. And one of the things that you will experience if you are a boy that has been raised by a single mom is that there's no one to cut the figurative umbilical cord. And if you don't do it yourself, it will never be done. This isn't an insult to mothers, but their nature is to nurture and to protect. And having a strong father there means that he will be the one that when she's trying to overprotect at the point when you need to become a man, he can be like, hey, let him be. He needs to feel this. He needs to experience this. He needs to do this. And the father can hold her and help her. When you don't have a father, there's no one to cut the literal or the figurative umbilical cord, and you will have to do it yourself. And if you don't, you will never be allowed to make the changes, experience the pain and the suffering, and the beautiful things too that you need to allow yourself to become a man, which is why there are so many men today that are really just boys in an older body. And it's not acceptable for the world that we live in anymore. And so these 2 years that I spent in the Philippines were a gift to me, because it was the one time that I could be in a new environment and see the world through a new lens and see myself differently. And I tell this story that I'm about to tell a lot, but there was a moment I was in the Philippines. It was about a month or two into it, and as a missionary, your requirements are that what they ask of you is that, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of rules, but one of them is they want you to exercise, they want you to take care of yourself. And me and my just nasty, cynical self, mind you, little Terrell was doing his best. He was doing his best with what he knew. That being said, my little cynical self, I remember the mission president, his wife, and others talking about exercise, how good it was for you. And I remember kind of just sneering at them, like, I don't need that. They don't know what they're talking about. And that was just constantly my response, and you've seen it. It's these guys that cope, right? It's the sour grapes. It's like, no. Like, when I remember growing up, like, I watched Will Smith in like iRobot and I Am Legend. There's these scenes where he's like doing pull-ups and he's jacked. It's like, man, it's awesome. And deep inside, I was like, yeah, that would be sick. But I think I couldn't allow myself to admit it because it was too painful for me to accept the idea that I don't think I ever believed that I could actually be that. And so my response to it consciously was like, whatever, man, I don't need that. Like, those people are just tryhards and like, it doesn't matter. And then one day I'm sitting in a meeting. I'll remember this day till the day that I die. I'm sitting in a meeting, and my mission president and his wife, wonderful people, they're sitting there, they're talking about this and that, training stuff for the area and being a missionary, blah, blah, blah. And then they start talking about exercise again. And I'm giving my, typical silent sneer about how stupid it is, because I'm better than that. And I remember them being like, we're asked to do 30 minutes, but I do 45 because I want to have the body and the mind that would allow me to serve God and the people around me better. And it's worth it for me to get up 15 minutes earlier just to do that. And I remember thinking like, oh, kill me now. And as I started thinking that, there was just a snap and I was gone. And it was like, this is cliche, but it was like I was separated from my body and I was looking at myself. And it was like God ripped the blinders from my eyes. And I saw myself exactly as I was. I saw the cynicism and the pessimism and the negativity. And I saw the struggle. And I saw the numbing. And I saw the vices. And I saw where that would take me in 10, 15, 20 years if I continued it. And I was terrified. And I was disgusted. And then, in the same moment that felt like a small eternity, God gave me this glimpse of who I could be if I changed. And I remember sitting there in that moment. It felt like there was no one else in the room, but there was. I don't think they know what happened while I was there. But I remember sitting there and I said, okay, all right, God, this is it. I'll change. I'll do whatever you ask. And so I went home and there was another missionary that was in the similar area to me. He had a copy of like the video files for Insanity. It's like the millennials know what this is, but no one else does. He had video files for Insanity, which is like P90X without the bar. And mind you, I'm like a chubby kid at this time. I don't know what I was thinking. And it's like 100+ degrees outside, 100% humidity. It was miserable. We didn't have AC. It was just rats and flies and spiders and lizards and sweat. You're sweaty all day long. But I had that moment. I said, I can't be the same. I can't keep going the way that I have been. And so when I did that, I got those videos and I started doing Insanity, and then I kept doing Insanity every day for 9 months. And when I had left home, I was over 200 pounds. And mind you, right now, you can't see my whole body. I'm about 185 right now. Not wildly lean, but probably have a good 50 to 60 pounds more of muscle than I did then. So I was a flabby candlestick of 205. And by the time I got back home 2 years later, I remember having this feeling like I can't go back to the way that I was. I can't do it. And so that's when it all started. I came back. Pardon me while I chew my carrot. I came back and I was like, I'm not going to be the way that I was. And so I started figuring out how to lift, kind of. And I was like, I'm not going to get fat again. So I didn't get fat again. I was like, I can't be eating Flamin' Hot Cheetos. I can't do the porn stuff. I can't do any of that stuff. And it was wonderful. I was very different. I was driven. I went to music school on a scholarship. And I worked as hard as I needed to. Like I said, school's always been pretty easy for me, so I didn't have to work that hard. But during those years, I fell back into some of the same cynical, hyper-judgmental, negative habits. But now a lot of those had turned on myself. And as time went on, I had a good time. I made music. I got better as a musician. I got better at the guitar. I'll probably play some guitar here. Some of these videos for the boys. And I became pretty obsessed with music, and I thought that's all I was going to do. In fact, my whole life, I thought that's what I was going to do. I didn't expect myself to be in some studio recording some video for you. That's an aside. I expected I'd be a musician, and I went full send into it, which is what I think you should do. And I didn't realize any struggles that I had at the time because I just wasn't wildly self-aware, and I just went about it. I was going to church, trying to stay real with God, trying to meet people, trying to do my best to improve. And around those years, I kind of hit the typical like red pill, the red pill rhetoric theory, and was like, I got to improve, I got to do this, like, and I did improve. And then around 2019, I got back in 2016. Around 2019, 2020, my voice broke. And I've always been a good singer, and I just like couldn't sing right. And mind you, at this time I was gigging, I was like playing weddings, I was auditioning for like music shows and getting on. I was finishing my last year of music school. I was recording music. I was teaching guitar lessons. I was using my voice all day long. I always had. And it broke. And I just like, I couldn't speak very well. So I go to ear, nose, and throat, and he's like, hey, bro, listen, you got a node. And it's like pitch perfect. She's like, I have nodes. She sings a really low note. That's not how they work. But your vocal folds are these really sensitive pieces of tissue that go together like this. Like when you blow into a balloon, you like pull it really tight. You push the air through it, and it makes the high-pitched whistle. That's how your vocal folds work. And so if you have something in between them, they can't come together right. And that's basically what happens when you have nodes. It started out as a blister for me. So he gave me some reflux meds. And that made it worse. And I came back 6 months later, and the blister had tripled in size, and I couldn't speak above like a low voice, maybe whisper. Couldn't sing pretty much at all. And I spent a year after that trying to fix it. But I remember walking into that doctor's office, and the ENT, he looked at the stuff. He came in and he was like, well, listen, sorry to tell you, but you're pretty much due surgery, maybe. And I can give you some reflux meds, but like we're probably not going to be able to fix this. You're probably never going to sing right again. And that just made me just raving mad. I was like, brother, you have got to be kidding me. You chubby 65-year-old man are telling me that there's no way to fix this. I don't believe you. This is stupid. You're stupid. I didn't say that to him. I was nicer then. We'll get to that too. And I sat there and I said, really? There's nothing? And he's like, well, like maybe vocal therapy, but like people don't ever really fix this naturally. And I said, try me. Let's see. And he had an assistant in there that was like, we can get you set up for vocal therapy to come in like every week and do stuff for a couple months. He's like, I'm going to put you back on the reflux meds. So they put me on a heavy dose of the reflux meds. And I went, and over the next 9 months, I fixed it. And about a month or two in, maybe 6 months in, my gut had started getting seriously wrecked because those acid reflux meds, paired with my time in the Philippines, paired with a lot of rounds of antibiotics from being a kid with constant ear infections, eardrum rupturing, always getting strep throat and other sicknesses, paired with those reflux meds, and then not eating enough, so being hypothyroid because I was afraid of getting fat after I came back from the Philippines as a skinny kid and being skinny fat. All that came together, and those reflux meds for 6 months were the straw on the camel's back that broke everything down. And my voice started getting better, and my gut broke. And I said, I've got to figure out how to fix this. So I started diving into gut health and some more kind of natural remedies. And by this time, we're in 2020. And I was living with a friend, and this is when the raw milk movement was starting to pop off a bit. And that was a good time. That was a wild time. But at this time, I was still like, no, like wheat is the way. And like meat is bad for you. I had gone like kind of plant-based, and I was like, dairy, I'm lactose intolerant, and it's going to kill me. But when the doctor said that, I couldn't fix it. And then I did. My mind started getting opened a little bit. And then COVID happened. And I realized that we had been being lied to by a lot of people for quite a while. I thought maybe there's another way. And around this time where my mind was more open, I have this buddy who I'm grateful to God for introducing me to. His name is Drew. He brought home a gallon of raw milk. And mind you, at this point, I was so lactose intolerant that if I drank a quarter cup of milk, I'm toast. Like, I'm out for an hour to 2 hours, just wrecked. He brought this home and he's like, hey, dude, I saw some people on Instagram and like Twitter saying like this might help you. Maybe you should try it. And I was like, probably not. And he's like, what are you doing? Why not? What do you have to lose? And I was like, pain. I have pain. I have pain to lose. It's going to be so painful. But I was like, but what if he's right? So I said, okay. I didn't have plans because it was COVID. Didn't have anywhere to go. Couldn't go home because we didn't want to get my grandma sick. She was old and ailing at the time. This was about a year before she died, so she wasn't well. We didn't want to get her sick. And so I was like, all right, dude, pour me up a glass. I got a glass like this full. I shotgunned that sucker. And then I sat down on the couch and watched a movie and prepared for imminent destruction. And the imminent destruction never came. And I remember that night being like, are you serious? Did I just drink an entire glass of milk and this did nothing to me? Everything they told me was a lot. Like, and that's when my descent into schizo health became real. And if you're watching this, then you've probably experienced some of me, maybe on Twitter or on Instagram. That'll continue to grow. But that's where it started. Because I was like, oh my gosh, they're wrong. And this is right. And I know that because I just experienced this and I've experienced the other side and it sucks. And so from there, I was like, I dove into Instagram and Twitter and Ray Peat and natural gut health solutions and raw milk and meat and glyphosate and dairy. And 4 years later, all of a sudden, I'm like staring at red light and wearing blue blockers and like wearing shorts outside shirtless in the sun because I know that that's what really gives energy. And I digress. But that's what started the rabbit hole, and from there I dove into health, into Weston Price, who you should look up if you don't know who that is. Nutrition and physical degeneration, and seeing all these patterns of health and of digestion and of food that people have known for thousands of years, and we've lost them, and we could rediscover them, and I could fix myself, and I did. I did. I fixed my gut, and my knees were messed up, and I fixed my knees, and my shoulders were messed up, and I fixed my shoulders, and my back was messed up, and I fixed my back, and I got skinny fat, and I fixed that. I got a six pack, and then that gave me more gut issues, and so I fixed that, and then I fixed the rest of it, and I fixed all of it. And every time I needed something, I would ask God not to fix the problem for me, but to give me the people or the means or the right questions or the resources that I could figure it out myself, because I knew that He had given me a mind and a heart and a body that would allow me to act. And so when I was at my lowest, which was 2020, I was alone. I had friends, and I couldn't see my family, and I was blessed with those friends. I was blessed with them, but I couldn't see my family. I couldn't eat right. I couldn't sing. I couldn't make music. I couldn't record. And music was the only thing that I knew. It was the only thing that was a part of my identity. And now I didn't have it. And I just said, hey, I figured the other things out. I'm going to figure this one out too, but I could use some help. And when you ask God that question with a willingness to do whatever it takes to get out of the situation, He gives you the means or the people or the resources or the desire or the right questions or just the straight up inspiration and answers to fix the problems. And I know that because every time it's happened, that's what's happened for me. And I fixed my metabolism and my gut. And I started building it online, and I had some success online, and I built a little bit of an audience. And I had a little bit of an online business going on, and I even had a microgreens business at one point, and I was having fun. I was a personal trainer for a while. And it was around that time where there was a day that I realized that I got healthy, and I felt good. Mind you, I've got so far to go by way of optimizing and perfection, but that's not because I have to. It's because I want to. It's because I want to see what I can achieve. But I had never felt so good. I was sleeping and I looked pretty good and I was strong and my body didn't hurt. My mood was pretty good, and I liked eating and I could eat and cook what I wanted, and my relationships were decent, and then I realized that it was never about health. And all along it was just about who I was becoming. And then I hit another couple of crucible years where my health was okay, and I obviously, there's ups and downs and things that I'm improving, but I've never had bad health since, like 2020. Then my demons started coming out, and I started realizing, hey, maybe I've been single for 10 years, not because the women are the problem, but because I'm the problem. Maybe there's some things that I never figured out. And maybe that whole thing with like never dealing with emotions, maybe that wasn't so healthy. And obviously these like fruity guys over here that are neurotic messes, that's not the way, but these dudes over here, that's not the way either. So maybe there's something else. And I started going through my own patterns and being like, why do I believe what I believe? And what do I know about myself and about God, and about diving into insecurities of myself? And that was it was a painful couple of years to discover all of that. There's a quote. There's a quote that I remember seeing 3 or 4 years ago. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, that's wrong. I'll read it and I'll explain why. It says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. It's by Marianne Williamson. And I remember when I first saw that, I was like, no, I'm afraid of failing. And then I realized after I'd failed and succeeded and self-sabotaged a lot, um, it wasn't a fear of failure. It was a fear of getting to where I want to be and losing everything. And it was a fear of the weight of responsibility that comes in really diving into who I can become. And it was a fear of my own potential. And it's so funny because I had gone from no one believing in me, and I thought that by being so disciplined that meant that I believed in myself. But it's funny because as I dove into this, I remember I was at a beach in Florida. I was sitting there and it was like, man, the reason that I don't get these things is because for some reason I think I don't deserve them. And I remember I had had these struggles with this girl, and there was another time where I was like, why do I keep doing these same patterns? Because I've always had kind of a rocky relationship with women, um, dating, which we'll get to in the future because I think that's relevant too. And that same thing came up. It was like, I think that I feel like I don't deserve it. And all this time, I thought that by being more disciplined, that it would solve all of my problems. And I didn't realize that if I didn't change my very core patterns and beliefs, that I would never change because I would never allow myself to, because I'd be stuck in the same pattern of telling myself that I'm not good enough and that I don't deserve it. And I remember sitting on that beach in Florida, and God was saying to me, whether or not you deserve it is irrelevant because I want to give it to you either way. And I learned that God wants to give you the whole world if you'll just choose to receive it. And when Christ says, ask and ye shall receive, he's not saying ask and do nothing. He's saying ask and then receive action. Receive it. Take it. Let it in. Embrace the gifts that God has given you. And at the end of the day, that's what led me to where I am. And I have a long way to go. But at this moment where I am, I've learned that life is a beautiful place. And whether it's the pain or the happy moments, it doesn't matter whether or not we deserve them because that's where we are. And you can learn to find joy in them. But most of all, that my potential and your potential is limitless because we're sons of God. We're children of God. And he's a God and he's a father that loves us. And I think there are times where we need other people to put an arm around our shoulder and remind us not just of who we are, but of who we could be, and to help us to believe that. And I've needed that countless times over the years, and I still will. And there have been moments that God has given it to me. People that are too patient and too kind and too loving for what I felt like I deserved. And so, this is for the boys. This is for the boys that maybe the world forgot about, but can't be counted out. And it's for the boys that maybe the world didn't forget about. And maybe you're different than what they think you are. It's for the boys that want not to prove to the world that you're good enough or that you're worth it, but for the boys that want to make manifest the glory of God in themselves. It's for the boys that want to realize the potential that all of us feel, where there's more, where you look around at this boring life and sometimes putrid world, which is sad because it's such a beautiful world. And you look around in this bubble that you've lived in, and in these moments of clarity, you say, is this it? Is this all? And you realize that it's not. And you can have more, and you can do more, and you can be more. And in the midst of that, whether it's suffering or experience or building, you can find joy, because that's why God made us. To find the joy of connection and of relationships and of creation and of struggle and of improvement and of lifting 400 pounds and of doing a handstand and of sitting in the sun and of kissing a beautiful girl and of giving your mom a hug and of playing with your nieces and nephews and of fixing your gut and of fixing your knees. And I want every boy to experience this, because when I was a boy, I don't think that I ever believed. I wanted to, I think, but I don't think that I ever believed that I could be who I am now. It's certainly not who I'll be in 15 or 20 years. In fact, I think I would have mocked me. And so we'll make some jokes and we'll have some good times and we'll teach some principles, whether that's about God or faith or fitness or your appetites, be it food or sexual, or whether it's cooking, or whether it's just jokes with the boys. We'll make a lot of them. But at the heart of it, the reason for this is so that you know that you are more than what the world says that you can be, that your potential is limitless, and that if you allow yourself to believe it, and if you give God your heart, the whole fabric of your reality can change. And I know that because I'm living proof of it. So, you're one of the boys now. Welcome.